bills.
But
and
it
their
doesn't
sewage
take
bills.
council approval for them to spend any of that money, right?
I'm sorry?
It doesn't take council approval for a mayor to spend that money, correct?
The mayor can't spend
The water department.
any money. The city council has jurisdiction and authority over that. She can propose things. Well, I take that back, because she can spend up to $50,000 without bids and quotes. She just has to get approval,
I think there's probably been more than that.
but she can't spend, the mayor can't spend money out of the utilities. That money, when I contacted the State Board of Accounts to learn more about this, that money is to be used solely for the operating costs and the maintenance costs of the utility.
Well, my point overall was we're in debt $15 million because they spent the money that should have been in the water department to update the water infrastructure. We shouldn't be in that debt since 1988 or 89 when it was built. Tens of millions of dollars went other places.
The first bond was 2013, and it's almost retired. I typically every 6 months ask for a fund balance report, and it's down around, the total of the 4 bonds was 15 million between water and wastewater, and it's down around 11 on the balance on that.
So we paid down to 22 million or whatever it cost to do that.
Not much.
We paid that.
But the oldest bond is close to being retired, and that would be something that I would like to do, would be to retire that bond and then take the surplus from having that bond and then apply it to the next oldest and get some of that debt paid down.
We've already lost our AAA rating. We lost that 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And we took a hit on that. Now we're down to a AA rating.
Okay,
So
I don't know what AAA, AA
it's
is.
it's your credit rating.
Credit, okay.
And that was shortly around stellar. So that went down, if I'm remembering right, that went down from a AAA to a AA. That hurts us. That makes us pay more interest and everything like that. These rates, in the fairness to the citizens, these bonds, excuse me, need to be paid down. We keep getting taxed every time there's an available way to cost us more money, we get taxed, just like the raised fees on the garbage collection. That went from $10 to $13 a household or a dwelling. And nobody would say, well, I wouldn't say nobody, but you had 2 city council members who would not entertain anything being paid for by that of the city. The city, the city has more than enough money to pay at least the partial $13 a month, if not pay the whole thing. But to me, that's an added tax. And there's never any shyness about adding a tax to our daily lives, and we shouldn't be doing that.
Who else? Nate, I'm gonna call on you when everybody who is a resident of Delphi gets their questions asked.
Oh, I pay Delphi water bill, but that's fine, sure.
You're not a resident, you don't vote here.
Sure.
Okay, but I'll call on you when we get there.
Hang on, I'm just here for the misinformation.
The what?
The misinformation. I'll clear it up whenever we get to that point.
Yeah.
My name is Dick Hawkins. I reside at 306 Armory Road, better known as the Warden of Armory Road. My question to you guys are,
I just
for
got
all 3 of you. Okay, I've been here, I just recently retired last year due to COVID. They closed my business, and my wife is still currently working. I live on Armory Road. I see what goes on Armory Road. I haven't heard anybody say anything about kids' safety yet. I understand you're into the infrastructure, the water, all that. The reason I'm bringing up the kid part of it is, it's not a safe place for a kid to live, but you want families to come here. On Armory Road, every day, I watch several municipal vehicles, police, off-duty, teachers, you name it, come down my road, 40, 50 miles an hour, during 20-mile-an-hour zone. I have a problem with that, and nothing's being done. And I have made effort to make a difference. I've had a sign out in front of my house for about, 2 years now, I think. And I did make a little bit of difference. I didn't myself, the city helped make a difference. We did get lights established that flash 20 mph when the kids are there. But I noticed this past weekend, there were 3 events going on at the school. There was a tennis match, a baseball match, and a track field match. Not once did them lights turn on. Kids walking up and down that road, going to each event, parents walking up and down that road. I guess the question I'm asking you is, what are you gonna do
I'm glad you got to that,
to
because I was
make it
gonna ask
better?
you.
What are you gonna do to make it better for kids to feel safe on that road? I've always heard, a few years from now, we're gonna put sidewalks up there. I've been hearing that for 30 years. I think if there's one top priority that needs to be done, is them sidewalks need to be put in on that road for those kids.
Amen. One of the things that I will do is, I will work with the school and, try to come to an agreement and have a working relationship with them. There needs to be a sidewalk on the south side of Armory Road from where the buses exit all the way down to the administration office. And I will try to, I will work and provide leadership to get the school to cooperate and do that with combination with city resources that get that done. The biggest thing, the problem lies with most complaints is enforcement. And we've had complaints on your end of town, we've had complaints on other ends of town and everything like that. As I said earlier, I have a law enforcement background. One of the things that helps with that kind of situation is patrolling. We need to have patrols up there, and if it needs to be saturated, we need to saturate it. You know, you don't have to write a ticket to get the behavior that you desire out of drivers. But if you can get up there and make your presence known, and sometimes maybe 2 or 3 cars, maybe you work with the sheriff's department, and you get 2 or 3 cars up there patrolling and saturate the area on a decent amount of time, like, days a week and stuff like that, you send a message to, hey, it's now a priority. We're going to make this a priority, and we're going to keep our kids safe. You can't sit there and just run up and down the road once a day or whatever. You've got to look at where the high traffic area is, what time of day the problems are, and you've got to hit them. Whether it be just multiple patrols and setting up there, turning on your radar so everybody's radar detector goes off and they slow down, or whether it comes to saturating the area with 3 or 4 cars to make people aware that A, it's a priority, and B, you need to slow down because the safety needs to be there.
Well,
Can I add to that?
oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, I agree with you on all those points, but the one key thing you didn't say, it's a safety zone. It's a school zone.
You bet it is.
That should be top priority, number 1.
I agree with you.
Not Wells Street, not Main Street, Washington Street, that street.
I
Because
agree with
that's where your future is. And if you don't have that future, and people don't feel safe, I've been told, well, you're the policeman outside the school. No, I'm not. I'm a caring citizen for kids that I don't even have go there anymore. All my grandchildren go to other schools. But I have a heart, and I care about kids. I proved that when I was on the fire department. I created a fire safety program. Wonderful fire safety program. I had to retire due to my health. But the thing that gets me the most is, I keep hearing from the police department is, we can't get up there. We got other things we're gonna do. Okay, I understand that. But when only one officer is doing it, and the productivity doesn't lie, that's a problem.
That's called bad leadership, and good leadership will provide that situation as a priority. Same way down around Summit Street and Vine Street and in that area too.
Yep.
It's the same situation, and we've got to be conscious of that, and that's going to have to be through good leadership.
I was just gonna comment, we get a lot of them walking down South Hamilton. And it's nothing for people flying down there with their phones on,
Yeah.
not paying attention. You got kids walking from school, and this time of year, you have people out walking their dogs every day and all that, and people just, there's no saturation at all down our road. And it goes on every day.
And the lights that you're talking about is not a city, not a, real city problem, of dropping the ball. The school has to program
Right.
those lights.
And that's exactly right, and I've addressed that with the school, and I've been basically told it's none of my business.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I live one house off of Armory Road.
Lay it
and-
on us.
And it has bothered me since I've lived there, since I moved there in 2000. I have watched cars, I have watched police cars following a car
And do nothing.
with the strobe light going, and the police car goes down so far and turns off, and the other person that was going 40, 45 mile an hour goes right on, and they do nothing.
what are you gonna do about it?
Well, we're gonna have to get the police to patrol. When I go by the police department, I see 3 cars sitting there.
Absolutely,
Where are they patrolling at? I don't ever see them patrolling.
I do, Justin Wilson does.
They run the stoplight at Ryan and Margaret all the time. Or a stop
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah,
They don't even slow down sometimes.
right.
Gail, what do you think?
Well, I know when you originally brought this, to the city council, your concern with this, that we talked with Aaron, and I actually asked for speed bumps.
Yes, you
He
do.
explained that that wasn't a viable option because the snow piles would tear them up. We did push for the flashers. That's not a resolution, that's just like encouraging people. And I think enforcement is an issue. I think it was Sharon that mentioned at a meeting, she kind of took the police chief to task about the fact that people know that you're not gonna get a ticket, and so if there's no accountability, but again, that's not the solution. We have a safe crossing stripe from the football field to where you go across by the administration building.
Yep.
In my mind, it's a point where we need crossovers. We need something for kids to go up and over from the track up to the school and back down. There is an issue too with kids coming out of the neighborhood behind you and crossing, and it's dark in the morning. And so the sidewalks would help funnel kids down, but if we're looking for a solution, and it doesn't matter what it costs, like you said, are we gonna wait until one kid gets killed? It's too late.
Right.
We need something to safely get those kids over, because nobody's gonna step out there and be a crossing guard.
Okay, just to add to what you just said, I actually said something to the school board, a couple of people at the school board, about me being crossing guard. I'm retired. I'm disabled, but I'm retired. I'd be more than happy to go down there and do that. Nobody wanted anything to do with it, nothing.
Really?
But building a bridge over it isn't, it's getting the kids safely, but you still have an issue of
Right.
speeding and not being taken care of.
Yes,
If you get the bridge, is he probably even gonna get worse?
well,
The
my
problem
first
is
priority,
even if you have a bridge there, then they've got sidewalks to go down to the ball game, and you're gonna need another bridge to go across, because the sidewalk ends there, and it starts again in front of the old armory, and goes another block, and then it's gone again. There are no more sidewalks.
well, if you cross over in that safety zone for kids to cross, like the safe route goes across there, and then, yes, cause he mentioned about sidewalks down both sides, because right now the kids have to come across where the solar field is, and then come on that side, and then cross back over again. And for kids that live down there on the south side of the road, if they could just simply come up a sidewalk all the way and not
Right.
have to cross back and forth,
Sidewalks are key.
that would,
But where he said the sidewalk's gonna be is too far up.
They need a sidewalk completely from 421, just past, what is that, addition behind me? I think he lives in it, you know what I'm talking about.
Zen tradition.
Yeah, the zipper addition needs to start there, you know, go all the way down to the, nursing home. Them kids should be able to get on that side rather than crossing over, well, you said, possible arch or whatever, to go by the football field and then go down. They still have to cross back.
but it's a two-pronged approach, because as she mentioned, you still have to have enforcement.
And I agree with that,
And
but I'm
Sharon-
saying this would help.
Yeah, Sharon took the police chief to task about the fact that, you know, we don't know if you're writing a ticket, we don't know if you're writing a warning. And some of the officers said it's unclear to them their enforcement range because they've been told it's your discretion. You can let people go 5 miles over, 10 miles over. It's a law,
Right.
it's a law, enforce it.
And you were,
A suggestion for that enforcement issue? The technology's already there and in use in a lot of places with license plate readers. You have those digital signs up there that tell
We
you
did
your
ask
speed
Aaron
limit.
about that, I think.
You've got license plate readers, you can just bill people.
They are very expensive.
I don't remember.
Well, I
I
actually
think they're
asked-
15,000 each and then 5,000 a year to operate them. I was watching the news one day,
Okay.
and they were talking about the cost of them.
well, I actually asked for that speed sign to be removed. Because all that is a radar for them to speed and see how fast they can go. That needs to be removed, period. It does no good. Not at all. I sit there every day and watch as it flashes. Cars will start out and then they get on it. And time they get to my house, that sign reads 48 miles an hour. It won't go any higher than 48, but they go higher than 48. It's just, it's not about me, it's about these kids. They need a safe place to be. You protect them in the school, we should protect them outside the school.
And I think it's sad the amount of abuse you've taken since. you
Oh,
brought
yeah,
this in.
and I, you know me, I'm outspoken, I have no problem with it.
I know, but it's
Gail,
still,
that was actually the chief of police at the time said that those are illegal and they cannot put those up.
the license plate reader?
Yes,
Okay. I
that was
didn't
what he said
remember.
at the time.
I knew somebody spoke about that, okay. Thank you.
I wonder that none of you think crossing guards are the answer. I think Gail said nobody's gonna do
We've
that.
been asked about that, and
Yeah.
I guess we were told that there
It was
was,
brought up to the school and they did nothing.
because that was really the concern down at, Summit and what's the short street there, Hamilton, that goes, no, down past the school, from your house north, down past Wabash. Yeah, because there was some concerns about kids crossing down there as well.
So does anybody go to the school board meeting about this?
I went to the school board, period. I
But
didn't
I'm
get,
just
only
asking.
thing I got was, they slowed the buses down, I had pictures. I actually took pictures for about, what, 2 months, I think it was, Gail and Dale?
Yeah.
About 2 months I took pictures, and I had all kinds of vehicles from the school speeding, and still do. And they addressed it, it slowed down for a while, but now, with what, I'm not gonna go into detail what's going on with me in the school, in front of my house, but it's not good. So basically, I've been shut down.
I'm just wondering if, are we the people group would go and start and get on the agenda?
Anything's possible.
Well, I think that, there are a lot of solutions, or a lot of options for solutions. 2 or 3 things. Leadership is gonna take care of that, by bringing extra patrols and enforcement to your street. You can put in anything and everything and throw this kitchen sink at this, and without enforcement, it's not gonna get any better. And that's what it's gonna require. You have vehicles going up and down that road 24 hours a day like any other road. And yes, safety is the priority and the most important thing, but you also gotta have, concern for the other times of the day for different reasons. And that's what I'm looking at, that it needs to be done in a sense that takes care of that problem. The bottom line is speeding cars is the problem. How do you fix that? You fix that with enforcement. And you take the other stuff to enhance that as you go forward.
So would you assign a police officer to get out there and slow him down out of his car?
No, I wouldn't take him out of his car. But there's different ways of doing that. There's different ways of doing that by having multiple cars there, having a police presence without being, obnoxious about it, and actually patrolling up and down. And, what I found a long time ago when I was on the police department, we would sit a car out, we'd be in it, of course, but, we'd have a car sitting there and you turn on the radar. And then, you know, you've got these, drivers that, you know, they rely on that radar detector. Well, then they start slowing down. Other cars see brake lights, and it's a way to get that message out there. Like I said earlier, you don't have to write tickets to get the behavior change that you desire. You have to have a police presence and the threat of that as you go forward.
Jeff, what are you thinking? I think I see the wheels turning.
Well, I think there's a few things we could do. You could put some four-way stops through there. One at Hamilton Street. That would, as people came from 800 and went to Hamilton, and then you could put another one down there where you, well, that would be too close to federal security, but you could put something else along there. I think speed bumps would work. If you go down Greenbush in Lafayette, you better slow down or you're gonna bottom out.
Yep.
And they run over that with a plow all the time, and it's not tore up.
We were actually told speed bumps couldn't be put on the road because there's a nursing home on the road. Am I wrong? That's exactly what they said in that meeting we were at. The guy in the NDOT was on the camera and said that they could not do it because there's a nursing home on that road. It would slow the emergency vehicles down. Exactly what he said.
Yeah. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done on this, and there's several different things that could work. You're just gonna have to really study it and see what's right for that area.
I just want you guys to push for sidewalks. That's basically my bottom line.
I will.
To do that, to keep them safe.
Gail?
Enforcement also helps, driving to Caterpillar every day, there are certain places on the heartland you do not speed because the state cop's sitting there or the county cop's sitting there.
Exactly.
And everybody knows right where that is and you slow down.
Exactly.
If you do that same thing on Armory Road, everybody's gonna slow down because they know they're gonna get a ticket. You see them pulled over in the morning and you know, oops, I better slow down, you know, if you don't, not paying attention. I use my cruise, otherwise I go too fast, you don't even realize.
I do too. Gail, I'm sorry.
But on Armory Road, it's 20 miles an hour when them kids are there, it's 20 miles an hour. There shouldn't be, well, we'll let you go 25 or we'll let you go 30. 20 is 20. When them kids are there, a kid can move so fast in front of a car, and even at 20, you have a hard time stopping it. So I think we need to enforce that 20 and be strict about it.
I got pictures to prove it.
Gail, do you have anything else to say about this?
I think one other point that somebody mentioned, was the fact that the weekend events and the flashers aren't going. And I know somebody has asked that before the city council meeting, and the statement always came back that the flashers are operating when schools are present, when kids are present in the building. And that's not enough, because it is a complex that is so spread out. And
So what would you do about that?
well, if you're going to look at all of your avenues, and that's going to be one option to slow people down and make people mindful, then it needs to be used more than just from 7:30 to 3:30.
And the school has control over those.
They do.
Does the school have to have control?
I don't know what was set up originally. I know that Aaron worked with them to explain how to make it operate and everything.
Do you know, Dale?
I believe so. That's my understanding from what it is. What's interesting is, signs don't work. I mean, it's just flat out. There's an intersection, where it's, just south of Martinsville on the west side. And it's where, it's 67, State Road 67. It comes down dual lane all the way to where you turn on 39 to go into Martinsville, because it jogs here. And then after 39, a little piece, the 4-lane goes into 2-lane, regular highway. It is so blanketed with signs that it's not even funny. And they still have accidents there. There have been multiple. It's one of the worst places in the state of Indiana where people have, been killed, they've had accidents, just simply going from 4-lane to 2-lane. And like I said, it's saturated with signs. Signs are not the end-all be-all, let's say it that way. They can work. Most generally, they don't. And this goes back to enforcement. If you enforce it, things get better.
Do we have any questions from the live feed to Facebook?
Somebody just said that Riley Road's really bad too, and not having sidewalks and stuff too, so.
Okay. So who else has questions here?
For that, so if parents got together and they decided to, do crossing guards, the school would tell them no?
You would have to ask them yourself.
Don't know.
I was in a private meeting, two of the representatives from the school board, and I brought it up, and it never was addressed after that.
So you're willing to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I bet there'd be other parents, if they knew, that they
I'm
might.
retired,
come
I'm
out.
willing to do that. I'm
Yeah.
right there,
That's what I'm
Believe me.
saying,
Yeah.
there's probably plenty of people,
yeah.
even like you said, retired people that might just go out there and
Mhm.
do, but my thing is, that road is so small.
Mhm.
Why are people thinking they gotta drive down that road when they could go some other way?
Cause it's a nice space.
Find a different way
Yeah.
until school's out, and then, until the kids are in school, that's
You have
what
a
I said.
residential, area down there, you have the nursing home, you have the road connects into the back of the football field, so you have activities, so.
That's true, but if
There's
you
a lot
took
of reasons.
survey of how many people actually go to the nursing home, or how many people go to whatever, or how many people are just crossing by so they can go through to go to work or something.
Well, there's more at the nursing home than just nursing home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
They have assisted living?
Yes.
They have the assisted living,
Physical therapy.
they also
Yeah.
have rehab.
But my point is, I just wonder how many people are just passing through just to get to another road when they could go a different way, that, or at a
I don't know how
certain
you would change that behavior though.
Well, that's true.
Once you
I'm just
figure it out.
wondering.
Yeah, again, we can't solve it today.
No.
Okay, any other questions?
I only have one more thing. A positive thing about this whole thing is, we did get something done. The lights are up. The school did help get those. Well, we did. The school didn't, but the school does back the kids. I won't say, I'm not saying the school's bad, but some of the things that I've tried to do never got done, so thank you. I'm sorry.
No, and I think that's a valid point, because when you implement something, there always has to be a time to go back and analyze and assess and make adjustments. It's not a one-time fix-all.
Right.
And no, I'm glad you brought that up again, because you're right there seeing it every day.
I'm right in front of it.
You gonna ask a question, Kevin? Okay, and there aren't any other questions? But he doesn't live in Delphi, so I'm getting to all the people who live in Delphi.
Well, the interesting thing as another person who's not living in Delphi but is here because it is the county seat, I think everybody that lives in Carroll County should be heard. We have a vested interest in how Delphi does. I also live in rural Adams Township,
Mm-hmm.
and I am here as well because I have a vested interest. So I would want to hear what he has to say.
I'm going to let you three decide if you wanna take a question
Oh, sure.
from a non-taxpayer.
Yep.
Okay.
Why pay taxes? I thought this was we the people of Carroll County, correct?
Correct.
It's put on by the Comet, and it's for Delphi taxpayers and residents. And I understand that you pay taxes, but you're not a resident. And so, but they say, yeah, so go. You wanna stand up and say who you are and where you live?
Well, thank you so much. I'm Nathan Lamar. I live at 1389 North 800 West. The misinformation that I referred to, and I guess I'll start off with a question for you to mull over while I say this. What will you do in your administration to control misinformation? So this evening, going back to the apartments, when I try to keep it on track, the information about the apartments, I heard 64 units. It's incorrect. It's 66. I heard that it's being built in the floodplain. It's not. It couldn't be built in the floodplain. Wouldn't get a permit. Wouldn't get it insured. So it seems there's information swirling around about this that if you don't support the project, let's fudge some numbers. Let's fudge where it's being built so that we can get some signatures against it. Half-truths also worry me. While Ms. Connor did come to the meeting, she was there for maybe 10 minutes. So maybe you didn't hear the part of the meeting where, due to the opportunity zone, it's in their best interest to keep the property for at least 10 years. I don't know if you were there for that part or
They
not.
have to.
What's that, I'm sorry?
They have to because of the opportunity zone. It has to make, anybody taking advantage of that incentive has to own the property for 10 years minimum.
So that's where the half-truths coming in and saying, it's a build, operate, transfer, that makes it sound like a 6-month deal, we're gonna build it, and we're gonna transfer it out that year. So, I guess my overall question is, what would you do to control that misinformation, a lot of which has been spread here tonight? Thank you.
I think along with that is dealing with assumptions. And I didn't say how long they would keep it. I said that they would own it and operate it until they had a full return on their investment, is what I said tonight. I know that when I carried the petition, that was, a lot of things were spread, that I was telling people it was automatically going to be Section 8 housing. Those comments never came from me, those comments came from the people that they asked me. And I explained to them that it was going to be marketed to professional couples that would pay somewhere between $1,400 and $1,700, depending on whether it was a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. My goal, as anything I do, is to have information. I think you stop, and the first thing you do is get information. The second thing you do is then you communicate, and you gather more information. And then you can act upon that. You're wanting a blanket coverage that something that we say is never going to go against something that you assume.
But that's where having the public records where everybody can get to them, they can go for themselves and see what was said and what is actually true.
And for the record, the meeting was open, I don't know if anybody else here attended that meeting. There seems to be some animosity against that project in the room. The only other person I saw from this room in that meeting was Ms. Connor, she was there maybe 10
And then I
minutes.
went home and watched the rest of it on video because it was live streamed.
Yep.
Sure, I'm
So
just,
don't assume that I only got 10
but
minutes.
if we're gonna tell the truth here, let's tell the truth. So whenever you wanna throw out that you were the only candidate that attended, let's be honest about how long you attended for. Maybe Mr. Stewart also watched it online. So instead of attacking each other, let's tell the
I'm
truth.
not attacking anyone. I said that I was the only candidate present. Is that wrong? Is that misinformation? Did you sit there the whole night?
Absolutely.
Did Mr. Yates show up?
No.
Did Mr. Seward show up?
No.
So that wasn't misinformation. You don't know if I asked somebody to watch for those things. You're assuming that because I stayed for 10 minutes, that's all the information I have. And again, I gather information. I don't like to be wrong. I don't like to give people misinformation, and that is never my goal. As a Christian individual, that is not my goal, to mislead people. I know that you think that I do, and you're entitled to that, but that's never my goal.
And again, I've asked what each of you would do, and I know Mr. Stewart still needs an opportunity to answer this, to make sure that we're giving that full truth. If someone walks in this meeting tonight for 5 minutes and turns around and walks out and says that they attended it, is that true and factual? Is that a good representation of them attending this meeting? I would contest that I don't think that it is, so I think we all just need to be careful with that, and I don't know why we had to, this was advertised at open forum. I think it's alarming that people are silenced until the end of the meeting. I hope that won't happen in your administration. I hope people are able to ask questions and speak with you. Mr. Stewart, I'll give you an opportunity.
Absolutely, I believe that people attending meetings, as long as it's in the parameters of the subject matter and everything else, should be allowed to speak. I have a lot of admiration for the county commissioners. They go out of their way to listen to people. Sometimes their meetings get very long. So, yeah, I look forward to that. I look for public input. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't try to reach out to people and give them an opportunity to talk to me. So,
I had one follow-up for you, sir, and
Sure.
maybe you can educate me on this.
probably not.
At the meeting, it was discussed that the appropriation was 1.5 million going for the apartments. You mentioned the number 5.5 million. Is the difference in that ready funds? Is the difference in that coming from the city? You know, if we're just off by a few $1,000s, it's one thing. We're talking about a difference of 4 million. Do you know what that difference, how we have such different numbers there?
Did you attend the first meeting with the Shelby, the first gentleman that was.
Yes, sir. And then I attended the subsequent open houses where people had,
Yeah.
that had signed the petition, came in and said they wanted to resend their signature once they had the information.
Those were the figures that were talked about in those meetings. You had to ask questions and everything like that, but that's where those figures came from. If it's changed, like 64 to 66, which is really a non-issue, who cares? But if those things have changed, you've got a different developer now. And different developers do different things differently. So if those figures have changed and I'm not updated, then that's my fault. I'm going from the figures that I got at that first meeting, and that includes the 64 units instead of 66. If they've changed that, they've changed it.
I worry more about the money and portraying those numbers to the public, to your constituents, to voters. 1.5 and 5.5 are very different, especially with some of the numbers that Ms. Connors called into question. They're completely different numbers. So I worry if some of that is ready funds. I'm not educated enough on ready funds
I
and
can
whatnot.
speak to that because I do know about the ready funds, and I actually read it before I came here tonight. The 5.5 million is considered 42% of the total cost of building. That would be the city's part of that development. What you're talking about are the ready funds, which was this region, and money that was allocated to Delphi for housing development in the amount of $1 million. And the city has to do a one-to-one match with that. So the city has to come up with at least $1 million to match that. When the mayor took on the Burn Brave project out here, the Burn Brave Farms project, she asked the council to set aside 2.5 million or designate 2.5 million for housing development. In the fall of last year, there was a fund established for housing development, Fund 4435, and Leanne mentioned, our clerk treasurer mentioned, that they tried to move $1.5 million into that fund. And the Department of Local Government and Finance denied that because they didn't properly advertise it. You have to advertise before you can appropriate and move money. So that didn't happen. At the April 3rd meeting, there was a request to make that additional appropriation in a public hearing to move that money into that newly established fund. Because part of that money was going to be used as $1,400,000 for the ready match, because we have to make a one-to-one match. That's where that figure of 1.5 came from. That was related to the ready match. The 5.5 million was related to 42% of the total complex down here. So those figures can't be interchanged as far as relating to the same thing. And then that still left of the reserved funds, because the mayor asked for the $2.5 million reserve to be released from Burn Bray so that it could go towards other housing developments, namely the apartment complex down here. So that money is held in the general fund. The night of April 3rd, the council voted to appropriate that 1.5 million and move it into the housing fund. So, and the gentleman that spoke about the maintenance building that night also talked about needing 1.9 million to go towards that, and he talked about potentially using some of that housing development money for that. So that money has been spread several different directions. But what you're questioning tonight, the ready funds and the 5.5 are two separate issues.
And that's just what I want to clarify. Most of us in the audience don't, all we hear is 5.5 million. At the meeting, we heard 1.5. So I just want to clarify what the actual relationship, we just can't throw those numbers around.
And the reason the 5.5 is being requested is, as I mentioned earlier, what Delphi has as a market rate for rentals is much lower than the market rate that this new complex is going to bring. So that differential is what's requiring that money from the city to help build this complex. That's what was explained to us from Mr. Bowen.
It's funny that you mentioned misinformation, Nate. This is why it's imperative for our city administration to be absolutely transparent with its citizens, because things like this are easily done because we don't get the information that we need. And to further that point, let the money sit over here that we're talking about. My point is, we're being fed misinformation about the definition of housing. Apartments aren't housing, not in the traditional sense. Houses are housing. They're dwellings, but they're not housing. And that's my problem with it. So that's reverse misinformation on what you were saying.
If I can follow up.
Sure.
Thank you. As far as housing, first of all, I'm a real estate agent. If either of you would ever like to talk about rental demand, I would be thrilled to talk to you because I haven't heard from either of you. Having 66 units in this community is gridlocked right now. We get more calls for rentals almost than we do for homes for sale. So while we can split hairs on the definition of housing, having a bed for a person to lay their head on in a workforce would be beneficial for this community. Would either of you argue that point?
If they can afford it.
So in another meeting that I was in recently, the state is paying third-party company to come in and do housing survey. We heard from multiple people that said they haven't found the ceiling yet. There's apartments in town for $1,000 with a waiting list. There's houses, $1,400 that they have people fighting over. So it's easy to sit in this room and say that nobody will move into those. On the other end of this phone, I'm telling you that there's demand for it. So if either one of you would ever like to speak about it.
I never said that. I never said that.
I got a question.
Dick?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm totally against that, putting that project down there. It's the wrong place, for one, and I know some people are gonna benefit from it, money-wise. Why don't you build it out there by Packers? Where that big lot is in that industrial area somewhere.
I would encourage you to come to the meeting with the developer.
I'm asking you the question. You're going
Dick,
against
we're
it.
not here for you
Okay.
guys to get
I'm just
into
trying to
it.
ask
We're
you.
here for
I understand.
these candidates.
Okay, got it.
I have a
So,
question. How does the community or Delphi citizens, how do they get notified of meetings and besides yours? But if somebody's not reading the paper, is there any other way that they're getting notified that?
Facebook and the website.
Okay.
And the message board and things as well.
and sometimes meeting notices come to me after the publication date. That's very common.
But I think
Yeah.
mostly what is being presented is just the one docket page to show what's going to be discussed. The whole entire packet, which a lot of times is between 60 and 100 pages worth of information, is something that is not made public.
And there's a place they can go to see what it is? The website, but you guys said the website's not up to date or something?
There's a lot of things on there that are from a couple years ago, advertising for positions and stuff like that that have already been filled and things of that nature. It just doesn't, it's not crisp as far as the time is concerned. But yeah, sometimes you'll see a one-page post about the meeting with the agenda on it. Other times they'll post the whole entire packet. It needs to be consistent.
Okay, I think it's time for closing remarks. Gail, do you want to go first?
I can't.
You want to stand? Just wondering.
I'm not told if I stand up, my head will.
Okay. Okay.
It's a little discouraging.
Yeah, take as long as you want, yeah.
That's fine. First of all, I wanna thank those of you that showed up this evening and had some very valid questions. I can tell you that it gave me things to think about that I hadn't even considered before this meeting tonight. And I appreciate you sitting here and listening to us, and giving of your time. Delphi has been my hometown since the day I was born. I remember how it was, as Jeff mentioned, when we had the factories, and those closed 25 years ago, and I don't know that we've ever recovered from that. I don't have a hidden agenda. I don't have pet projects. I have a heart for this community, and one of my priorities will be families. I am a school teacher, and that is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I want to make sure that we take care of our families and offer quality of place and make sure that our citizens come first.
Jeff? Oh, I thought you were gonna stand up.
No, I'm not. I don't want my head cut off.
We get it.
He can pick that thing up.
Me and my wife watch HGTV. There are several shows on there that we like. One of the things that has caught our attention, this is the second season of it, is Hometown Makeover. And they go to small towns, and these small towns have died. And I've been coming to Delphi my whole life. My grandparents lived here and they died here. So I've been coming back to this area, and I moved here in '91 from the Chicagoland area, and this has been my home since '91. And Lord willing, be my home until they put me in the ground. But I love this town, and I would just like to serve. I'm retired now, so I have the time, and would just like to help the community so that we don't become a situation like what we see on the Hometown Makeover, where we need someone to come in and get us going. I hate seeing empty storefronts, businesses closing. I think we need to take care of local business. We need to support local business. We need to grow local business, so that others don't have to, we don't need to go to Lafayette to buy stuff. We need to support our local businesses as much as we can. And so and I just like to see our town thrive and flourish, and that's why I'm running for city council.
Dale?
I believe that the city has a lot of issues and a good share of problems right now in many different areas. And it's gonna take a strong, committed candidate who will be there tomorrow, who will push forward and try and take care of those. We've got senior citizens who need a lot of stuff. We have the youth that we're not even bothering with. In fact, we're taking things away from them as opposed to promoting them and getting them to stay because of amenities and things of that nature. We've got to be conscious of that. We've got to be conscious of our future. And that needs to be through incremental and sustained growth as we move forward, not only with housing, but like Jeff said, with businesses and different things of that nature. In my opinion, the city of Delphi is not a healthy city as far as what we have going on right now. We've got too much special interest. We've got too much stuff going on where we're spending money on things that don't benefit the majority of our citizens. We need to change that. We need to implement things like community gardens in case things get even worse than what they are now. We need to implement rain barrels and stuff like that. And we need to focus on our kids, not only their safety, but as a priority, their safety. But not only that, but what are we going to do to retain them? You know, we have so many, you know, we bleed out our kids. They go to Purdue and other universities. Do we have anything that they would want to come back for? Because I don't think we do right now. We put in a dog park, and the dog park's fine. But you took out a skate park that not even in the same area, or in the same area, but not even in that constructed area for that dog park. And that was silly to me. We've got to focus on our kids. We've got to focus on the city's future and make this a healthier city. And that comes with cutting the budgets of unnecessarily expenditures, making responsibility of the other budgets that we need to make responsibility of, and moving forward with that and including everyone as a citizen. That's part of the problem. A lot of people here don't have hope because they're excluded from everything. We don't have an agenda for prosperity. We need an agenda for prosperity. That's what I'll bring to the table. Thank you very much, John and ladies, for having us. Thank you, Debbie, for having us.
Yeah.
And thank you, citizens, for coming here. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time for meet and greet.